Thanks, Marshall. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Q&A. My name is Gary Gerber. I'll be hosting, and Paul Higgins will be driving documentation for us. So if we come across something where we have documentation to share, we'll have that shared out on the screen for you. I don't have a lot of announcements other than the fact that not tomorrow, Friday is the deadline for Fall 1. We're looking pretty good. There's still some folks out there with some sped, mostly sped errors, a few here and there, as folks are trying to get those wrapped up. So the deadline is Friday, and then Fall 2 is currently underway as well, and that deadline is in February with no amendment window. So you have till February 24th. One of the things that I seeing a lot with Fall 2, just off the top of my head, is you can upload your course and student course sections at the same time now. But what I'm finding sometimes when I'm seeing folks with Cert 77 arrows is there's some discrepancies, but CALPADS is letting those in right now, and then you'll catch them with these errors afterwards. Before, they may have been caught on input and stopped and rejected, and you would have to fix them to do that. So the main thing is making sure your course section IDs and your local class IDs and all that's in line with both the course section files and the student course section files. Other than that, I don't have any announcements. I'm not sure if Martha's on. Martha, Angela?
I don't have anything today. We did not have a release yesterday because we are in the deadline week, so the next release is targeted for Tuesday. Just to piggyback on what you were saying, Gary, in my head, I kind of keep it straight to just follow our old pattern of uploading in sequence for the Fall 2 files. So always start with the course file, then the student course file, staff demographics, then staff assignments. And the difference now is you don't need to wait for them to post, but just kind of keep that in your mind that you need the parent and child files to go together in order for the system to be whole. So we used to stop you from sending up the child without the parent, and we don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Okay, first question is from Laura. We have a course that is taught at one of our sites by a teacher from a state university, and we have a MOU, method of understanding, with the university for the course. The teacher is not an employee. How do I report that teacher associated with our course, with the course? So there should be an FAQ on that, and Paul's taking you there right now.
And Marshall, Brandy is in the waiting room or in the attendee list. Do you want to make her a co-host?
And you can do that. Basically, that you're going to be using the 10.9 wildcard because the college instructor doesn't have a seed that you can use. And there it is.
You just want to make sure. You just want to make sure that you appropriately code the courses using the college credit course codes, or if it's a CTE course, the appropriate CTE course code and the non-standard instructional level code.
Thanks, Nate. Okay, next question is from Kim. I know we have probably discussed this, but my brain is just not clicking on this. When we adopt a record for this scenario, a student transfers in near census day from a different program setting, let's say juvenile court or MPS. We will not be doing the 30-day review amendment before census day. Can we edit the transaction to show they are now in a 400 public school?
Let me just ask a question here. I'm assuming you're asking about what to do when a student with disabilities transfers into your LEA and what your record responsibilities are. And our response has been that as soon as LEAs receive a student with disabilities transferred, they are to immediately adopt the previous LEA meeting, schedule, hold, document their own meeting. But if you're adopting an IFSP, you can't change the IFSP during the adoption, nor can you amend a record as you're adopting it because you don't own the baseline record. So if you're a record, you adopt the record. Then once you have the record, then you can close it, modify it, do whatever you want with it. But if you don't adopt that record, you're going to get a Cert 132. Now, you're also going to have the problems if you have the IFSP, but the student is aged out. Now you're going to have other problems if you haven't closed that record. So the Cert 132 has just kind of become this nagging problem because not everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. They're going to adopt a record, but then they immediately change all the data in the record to something else. And then are curious as to, hey, why am I getting errors on this? It's because you didn't adopt the baseline record or the most recent record and then work with it. So that's my 2 cents worth on the Cert 132 right.
Thanks, Paul.
So with respect to her specific questions, and I think Paul answered it. So Kim, you're not going to be allowed to change the setting. You have to adopt the record as is and then submit a subsequent amendment. So even if the formal amendment won't come for another 30 days, you can make an amendment to reflect that they are now in a public school.
That is correct. What Brandy mentioned about the interim placement hasn't happened, although you don't need an interim placement to have that amendment correspondingly as what Paul said about adopting it as is first, and then subsequently do the amendment as needed. And then, obviously you have to conduct your interim placement. That's probably going to be, resulting to another amendments thereafter.
Thanks, guys. Next question is from Rebecca. We have a student that is withdrawing from us temporarily. They will be moving to Greece to, They will be moving to Greece to film a movie from now until mid-March. Can we use 240, or would you recommend a different exit code for us to use? T240. Would it be
200 moving out of country?
200 wouldn't be moved out of state or country?
Yeah. Yes.
Pretty exciting to be filming a movie in Greece.
Mhm.
Next question from Joanne. When will the 2022-23 versions of Fall 2 trainings become available on CALPADS YouTube channel? I know they were still happening live, but anybody have an answer for that?
They probably need another week or two. There's 3 of them that they have to get cleaned up for publication. So Marshall,
Yeah.
one that you're working on?
Getting ready to work with the population, fall to population. And then after that, I'll move on to the RC. And I think Sly is working on the advanced.
Yep. And the advanced should be out early next week.
Same thing with the population.
Awesome. Comment from Marcy. CALPADS is posting super speedy this afternoon. That is good to hear. We don't hear that of CALPADS. The word speedy and CALPADS in the same sentence. Harry asks, are distant learning teachers itinerant?
Not necessarily. Pull in, push out, itinerant teacher. The definition is generally they don't have rosters. Just because you're teaching an online course, generally you have a roster. The only time that you wouldn't is when they're online providing support instruction.
Question from Carmen. Assuming that CALPADS valid code combinations course group standard grade level range tab says Y in the departmentalized course standard grade level range middle grades 5 through 8 column, can we use a CTE course, ergo 8100, for a 5th grade, even though we do not have a pathway for that industry? If so, would this trigger an exception?
There you can use it. it is possible that you're offering a CTE course and in middle grades. It doesn't necessarily have to be part of a pathway at that point because it's middle grades.
Laura, we'll come back to that. Juliet says hello. Hello, Juliet. Going Gray, Fast, and Rebecca are communicating. Cami has, can you state the file order for fall 2 again? So you could upload your, well, it doesn't really matter too much, but you can do your staff demographics, staff assignments, course, your courses, CRSE, and then your student course, CSE files. Going Gray Fast has a question. Q1, where is the documentation? Where is the documentation? Are the rules for tagging the students' reporting language with their status? Here we go. EL must not be English. English must not be EL. Are you talking about the valid code combos?
Or the error that gets thrown when you try to use it.
Associated with acquisition status. Basically, I think it says if the primary language may not be English or American Sign Language.
Isn't there a tab in the that has the progression of what they can be and can't be?
Yeah, primary language.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. From Mary, we just discovered a student in our adult transition program has been marked absent every day since August 16th. Turns out he isn't coming, and they would or want an amendment back in June. Now I've already reported him in fall 1 enrollment. Would it be appropriate to remove his 22-23 enrollment at this point, or is it a complete and total no-no?
Brandy, when they're an adult.
But in this case, he wouldn't have generated a.
You're supposed to, do you at this point or no, because they're older than 18?
These are adults. I mean, these are adult age, so they're not subject to compulsory ed. They can self-withdraw.
So it's appropriate to remove their enrollment then, right?
Like I said, they haven't been claiming ADA for them, but what we would expect to see at some point is some sort of withdrawal, self-withdrawal on the sped side of things.
Submission for fall 2. Question 1 from Asha. This is a question about escape to Q to CALPADS, escape PADS translations. Some of the assignment codes have recently become obsolete. We are working deciding how to update our obsolete codes. Do obsolete assignment codes have to be updated in time for the fall 2 deadline?
Yeah. CALPADS only accepts valid state codes. Because we don't do code mapping anymore, right, Angela?
We do not.
Question 1 from Barbara. If you have a teacher that is on special assignment 100% FTE and then also teaches one period at the same school as a special assignment, how do you report their assignment? You can only put one teacher assignment, or you can only do one classification per school per year. So if you have a teacher already in there, you can't add another teacher assignment, but you can have up to 200% FTE.
I mean, essentially, you would just submit one staff assignment record with 100% or 110% FTE. 110% FTE, you would list the TOSA assignment in the SAS record, and then you would submit a course section record.
Fall 1 question. Do we approve the LEA disapproved version, or we only need to approve the current revised uncertified Fall 1 data, filing at 0 fatal errors? So yeah, no, don't approve your LEA disapproved version, because that will just bring back that old version again. You definitely want to approve, LEA approve your revised uncertified version. And congratulations on 0 fatal errors. Patrick, question 1, can the LEA contact become a user role? We need multiple people to be LEA contacts, similar to the anomaly contact, and the current format does not allow us to do that.
Just submit a ticket and we can maybe discuss it in one of our change and issue meetings. It's probably not going to happen right away, Cedric.
From Juliet, question 1, sorry, hit enter to just started assigning SSID again after many years. I've watched videos several times. I don't understand how to assign state IDs for students who had no matches on the file. I have other questions too and have submitted tickets. Then there's ticket numbers and haven't had a response yet. Have 2 students with 2 state IDs. Students were issued a different permanent ID at the beginning of the school year. Therefore, we issued a student a different state ID. How do we fix these? I would continue. That's what I left out of my beginnings. If you have tickets, and we recommend that you continue working with those tickets rather than that, because there's a lot here, and this is definitely something that would be better worked through the agent through a ticket. I don't know how old these tickets. Hopefully, they were just submitted and we have not had a chance to respond to them yet. But we will respond to it and we will help you out there, Juliet. Question 2 from Going Gray Fast. We'll come back to that. Question 1 from Naomi. CALPADS defines a non-certificated administrator as an employee of an educational service institution at the admin level who has been waived of the requirement of having to possess an administrative service credential. Who waives the requirement of staff member to have the credential, the school or the board?
That's a good question. I don't necessarily know the answer. I know that there are specific local assignment options that allow a non-certificated person to serve in an administrative assignment if they have, for example, CBOs might have, experience that qualifies them for that position. So I believe it's a local assignment option and it's generally approved by the board. But if you want to submit it as a ticket, I can try and get that answered by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing.
From Stephanie, in regards to the plan effective date field, is there any harm in users, providers filling out the date as far as CALPADS is concerned? SACE gives us compliance validation errors. When should users start filling this section out?
So in terms of the plan of dates, we are not going to start collecting that until 23-24. So you can start submitting it just to kind of familiarize yourself with the process, but we actually won't start collecting that until the 23-24 year.
Is there a resource that explains all the difference between revised, uncertified, LEA disapproved, view, LEA approved, etc.? Because you're getting a lot of questions. Do we have that documented? Where would that document?
We have a video. Nate did the long video. Did you go into those statuses and what they mean?
Both. Martha's.
Shelley is responding to a question with a question for Carmen's question, saying, I believe it will trigger an exception if the teacher does not hold the appropriate credential authorization. Is that true?
Hold on one second. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to multitask. and I'm not sure.
That was the one I think about the administrator.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one it was. Maybe it was about.
Oh, no, this was one, boy, that was right at the 3 o'clock hour. It's the one asking about the valid code combos, grade standard level range, mid 5th grade using a pathway for that industry. Would it trigger an exception?
If they use the CTE course code. Yes, that's correct. It is going to trigger an exception if they don't have a CTE designated subject's credential. Yes.
Okay, question 1 from Larney. Is the process that Brandy put together to get a list of all our CTE completers from the previous year and to be surveyed this year for fall 2 still the same? I thought it was discussed at the regional meetings, but I'm not finding it on the slides. Was the process presented at the regional meeting?
Yes.
But it's also in the EO checklist, Brandy.
Yeah, the process is still the same. The only difference is the reports in which the only difference is the reports that you use to find your completers in prior years. So I believe 319 and 320 are the current year. It shows last year's completers and maybe the year prior, but then you'll have to use 314 and 15 4 years prior to that. But that's the only thing that's changed.
Is there any provision for not being able to certify by Friday when the correction of outstanding errors is out of the district's control? 132 is that the district is waiting for SACE to generate transactions. 132 that the district is waiting for a neighboring district to properly exit as they should have prior to the student enrolling with us.
Only provision is send in the service ticket when you hit that roadblock. If that other district can't exit it, you also have the opportunity to exit. And I forget what flash that is documented in, Joe.
It's CalPADS flashed. You could adopt the record and then exit it subsequently.
Thanks.
Okay, Karina has a question. One, I apologize to ask a very similar question as the previous one, but I want to make sure I understand your answer correctly. We have a student that enrolled on October 5th, or they enrolled on Census Day. Was I to adopt his latest record and then immediately issue an amendment that same day to fix settings, surface location, primary, etc.? This is affecting our delay codes. We have considerable number of students that enrolled so close to Census Day that enrolled without delay codes that are no longer valid. Here goes 75 and 60. How do we remove those? Can delay codes be removed in an amendment?
Well, first thing is was in place on October 5th. So you would adopt the plan on October 5th. And then unfortunately, you're not going to be able to submit an amendment with that same date because you'll get a validation error that says you can't have an amendment on the same day. Or actually, no, I take that back. Yes, you could submit an amendment on October 5th that indicated any change in placement.
Yeah, correct, Brandy, because I believe if they adopt, the meeting date would be still the same meeting date as the adopted record is.
Right. And the amendment date could be.
Correct.
Okay, question from Sandra. When we receive a student withdrawal notice from a school for a student who resides in our district and we know that they have moved out of our district, do we notify CalPADS of the new district of geographic residence? I don't know if that's a requirement or not.
District of geographic residence is only required when a student enters. So when they're enrolling, not when they're exiting.
Question from Charlie?
Can I
go-
interrupt?
Sure,
I just want
yes.
to make sure we have 547 that prevents the meeting date and amendment dates to be the same.
Right, but the meeting date would not be the same.
Okay.
If he's submitting a prior meeting date, which was adopted from the prior district, and then the amendment date would be census day. Does that make sense,
Oh.
Alex?
Yeah, I misunderstood. I thought that the
Me
meeting
too.
was 10-5.
Yeah. Oh, that was the enrollment. Okay, question one from Catherine. Do we know when the Oops, I'm sorry. Question one from Charlene. We have a state course code 9252, Algebra 2 for 8th graders. How come we cannot extract the record until we change the grade level range to secondary 9 through 12?
I'm assuming you mean extract it from your student information system. Just remember, folks, that when you are a standards grade level range for these courses, the standards are based, the course code drives the grade level standards. So even though the students are 8th graders, they're actually receiving secondary content. And that's why your SIS is not allowing you to extract it, because Algebra 2 is by definition 9 through 12 standards, even though the students are in 8th grade.
Catherine, do we know when the uncertified will be available to access 22-23 school year? Oh, you're going to start. It will be when ramps up.
They say uncertified, so is that snapshot report or ODS?
Do we have an ODS version now?
Yeah, it may not be accurate, so maybe they are waiting.
I don't know ODS version of that report available.
Is that the ODS Paul's pointing out, or?
It is. I'm pointing out.
But it may not be as accurate as.
Not keeping those updated as much as the snapshot ones, which aren't running yet for end of year.
But you can give it a shot and see how close you get.
Talk back and forth. 322 from Chrissy. Question one, if a teacher's employment end date was July 1st, 2022, does a job assignment have to be reported to CALPADS for 22-23? If so, what would be the appropriate assignment if the teacher did not have student enrollment due to the school not being in session? I don't think you would have to put anything for the student if the end, well.
Well, if you've end dated them by populating the employment end date as of 7/1, they weren't employed on census day, so they shouldn't be included. And you wouldn't have to include a new SDEM or SAS for them. So long as you exited them correctly, didn't just end date the SDEM record, you actually populated the employment end date field and posted it, it should remove that teacher from your staff population.
Yep. Thanks, Paul. At 323, Paul posted the certification process. Question one from Eric. If a teacher is on medical leave, the FTE should be 0, correct? That's correct. If it's actually, that's all you can put if they are on using the 6018 employee on leave code. And that teacher is reported not is, and that teacher is not reported, and that teacher is reported not the sub. If we offer that sub a teaching position for another class, are we going to have issues with end of year 1?
Because what I'm hearing is you're going to offer the substitute a permanent, because remember, you're not reporting the sub in the other class already has a teacher of record.
So if the teacher is on leave, but you're reporting them because they are the teacher of record, you can't put a 0 in there, right?
Yeah.
I know it seems counterintuitive reporting them on the course record, but that in their staff assignment record, their FTE is 0. Right now, the system allows that because CTC wants the teacher of record on the courses, but we need to know that that person is on leave.
Thanks for the clarification, Brandy.
325, Karen posted the snapshot revision functionality. At 325, Marshall said, if you need a refresher, a quick look at the Fall 2 reporting certification video on YouTube channel is a great place to start. And he put the link there. Question 1 from Larney. Is the process that Brandy put together to get a list of all of our CTE leaders? It's like, wait, this question. Yeah, that was the same question we already covered. Same person.
Responded to it, like commented on it. And
Oh, and it posts it back in as a, that looks weird. I know Zoom has changed a little bit recently. From Claudia, Q1, PEBT. Here's a student SSID number, was independent study for 21-22, has a 182 school lunch program record for 2021, and is not on the list to get PEBT. This is the first complaint we have, but we did have 700 plus students in independent study for the 21-22 school year. When I called, they said that he didn't qualify and that was the list was finalized. I don't think they used the data in CALPADS for independent study classes. What can I do? I think if they have the
one thing to remember is that they had to have been enrolled at a school that was participating in the National School Lunch Program. So that's the first thing. Were they participating in National School Lunch Program? If the answer to that question is yes, you know, there may be an issue. I hope you guys can hear me.
Yes.
So, you know, we'd have to take a look at the specific school to see if, so send in a ticket and then we can try and look at that specific student. But again, the first thing is, was the student enrolled at a school that's participating in the National School Lunch Program? Secondly, were they in independent study? Okay. And so the independent study was not taken from the course data, but rather, remember you submitted data using that ISAC tool. And so that student had to have reported independent study ADA, and it had to have been reported in that ISAC tool. So you have the files from that ISAC tool, take a look at the students that were in that file and see whether or not they were included in there.
Because now I'm seeing questions repeated with replies to them. There's got to be a way of filtering those out. Makes it a little confusing. Okay. I think I got through all the Q1s, so I'll go back to the Q2s. Sorry if I missed anybody. Q2 from Laura. Can our SPED department send initial IEPs who qualified after census day to CALPADS without causing errors in our already certified Fall 1? I'm being told that in a recent training of SPED peeps that Brandy advised against sending any transactions to CALPADS until after Fall 1 is locked and done for everyone. I'm looking to confirm this or get documentation showing we can send them up. My testing coordinator needs these students to show as SWD and TOMS. I would say if you are certified in fall 1, you are good to go to upload any their data, any SPED data that comes after the fact. Because once you're certified, it's frozen, it's not going to change.
Right. I don't remember telling anybody not to send up any transactions. I know that I did say that when we were going through end of year and transitioning into fall. Moving from fall 1 to fall 2, it shouldn't be an issue.
I have seen one scenario where a student enrolled in like January of 2023, but still caused a SPED error. They had orphaned SS records for the 22-23 school year and no associated SPED record. And so that did trigger a cert error. So it's possible to mess up fall 1 on students that enrolled after information day.
But not with their LA approved version, right? It would be with their revised uncertified version.
Right. That would be revised and certified.
Yep.
Definitely. Yep.
Okay. And next quote Q2 is from Going Gray Fast. We really need a SPED FAQ before next fall too. What is the ETA? I am not calling it SPED for dummies.
We are right now working on the initial, I don't even want to say prototype, but we're putting together a SPED data guide. So we just know that we are working on it. Hopefully we'll have something ready no later than like the April timeframe.
Q2 from Catherine. Are you able to show me how to pull the 1.4 report with these guidelines? I need to have the 1.4 forms by year, by school, and by grade for 2020, 2021. They need to be in numbers, not percentages. 1.4 report. I'm not sure what we want to do with this. We're going to try it live, Paul.
I wonder if it'd be faster just to do it from DataQuest.
If I remember correctly, the 1.4 report, what trips up people, column under grade or the column 4 grade has a little plus sign so you can collapse it. Or expand it, I'm sorry. So you just need to run it the way that you would run it. But instead of just leaving it as default, click on that little plus sign on the column, and then that'll show you the counts for grade.
Snapshot only, Paul. It's not under ODS.
Just checking.
Thanks, Alex. I think that's probably what it was. Okay, here's another Q2 from Rocio. Is the new teacher on special assignment code 6028 for all itinerant or pull-out push-in teachers that are providing support, i.e. intervention and resource teachers?
Providing support instruction, they need to have a course code. Okay, we have specific support course code. RSP, response to intervention, English support, math support. We have course codes for that. So please use those, create a course section for those individuals and submit it. Teachers on special assignment, that code is only for teachers in non-instructional assignments that are on special assignment. So I had an LEA tell me, well, what if someone said, go ahead and use the TOSA code for this teacher, but you know that they're actually teaching science. Okay, if they're teaching science, they need to have a science course code.
Our credential analyst shared a CDE CALPADS Fall 2 regional trainings. Is it something for CALPADS coordinators as well?
I'm assuming they're talking about the assignment monitoring trainings that we're doing.
The
Regional.
quarterlies, because the quarterlies were regional, but it wasn't fall 2 related. That's interesting.
No, this is the assignment monitoring trainings. Okay, so the answer is if your credential analyst is planning on attending, and it's the one I'm thinking of, and Charlene, I'm not sure which county you're in, but it is really important that you attend as a team. So yes, your CALPADS administrator should go if your credential analyst is going.
From Barbara, we exited a student last year as truant. Last week, we received notification that he just enrolled in school in another state. How do I report this since I don't have an SENR record for him this year? I don't think anything changes.
Right. It's still valid that they were a truant back when you had them.
Right.
May is asking, how does the director get a new CalPads account? Can I create an account for her as an LEA person?
Application. So you have to send in a service ticket for a new SELPA admin application. They'll send it back to you and they'll set up an account for you.
If you were to give them an LEA level account, they don't have the ability to act as a SELPA. There's certain SELPA reports they have access to when they have the SELPA roles.
Okay. At 342 and 340, posting some documentation and videos. Barbara says yes, but I don't want him reported as a dropout on our cohort report.
Angela and Gary, you guys.
Well, if the problem is that at the time, either he disappeared and you did a full investigation, couldn't locate him, or you SARB'd him, and either one, there's a paper trail that goes with that. And at the time, you determined that the E was correct, that they were truant, and that's documentation that CDE wants. That the fact that that kid disappeared and you had to go hunt him out and you couldn't find him, that's information CDE needs. Now, the fact that he appeared, months later out of state, that's relevant too. But again, we can only document what we can document in the moment. So going back and revisiting that, and changing that E140, now you're changing the longitudinal data to fit your needs. And that's not Hoyle. You can't do that. That's not the rule. You have to objectively implement those codes as they occur. And then if something happens within if you would assign that on, let's call it June 1st, and then on June 14th, you received that request from that out-of-state school. Well, you can go, hey, my investigation could still be open. It's still in the same academic year. I can do this. And you could legitimately make that argument that new information came to light, on the heel of that investigation that changed that E140 to ET200. But, months later, and then just going back and changing it because it suits your narrative better, that's not really honoring the longitudinal nature of the data. In my opinion.
Okay. Eric has a question too. Sorry, I have to ask a question not related to certification, but about enrollment. Is it legal to ask for a birth country during registration? The way our protocols are in place, we ask that question during the first day packet that most people filled just days before the first day of school. This will create a huge issue on how we request SIDs. I know the birth country is a required field on CALPADS. There's one that's you could put for unknown, but it is a required field.
It's a required field, but the Attorney General prohibits asking that question as a requirement of enrollment. So they can't ask it during enrollment. If the parent provides information that gives you information about that student's birth country, for instance, a birth certificate, then you can record it, but you cannot require it as a condition of enrollment. If they don't provide the birth country document that shows birth country, then you have to request it after the student has enrolled.
Okay, here's a question one from my TOSA this year are no longer TOSAs, but are now back at sites providing math support and reading support. Would course code 9245 work for math support with non-classroom based code 6020 work?
Reading and math support, they both need with the respective, I'm not sure what each of the support codes are. I think there's a FAQ on the support, but you will not report them as non-classroom based. 6020, that's not even relevant for people with support assignments. Okay, so you don't need 6020. Again, folks, we always find that you guys are hung up on the fact that we call that the non-classroom based or support assignment code set. And it's because the support teachers don't have a classroom. And I get it. You know, what I would really like to see is we change that name to non-instructional assignments, because that's what it is. It's admin assignments, pupil personnel service assignments, and teachers that are not instructing students. So don't use 6020 at all. You're only going to use, if they're providing support, you submit course sections with them for them with the respective support codes.
I think it's the question on interims or itinerant, sorry.
Probably, yeah.
Is it in the works to get that changed to not say non-classroom?
No, I mean, there's no ticket, but should probably submit one.
You had it.
Oh, Paul's looking it up. Yep, there we go. Question one from Rosario. How is it that a student does not count as a special ed if the special meeting date is after CBED's day and they have not exited the program? Well, if you're talking about fall one, if the meeting date is after CBED's, then they wouldn't count as special ed for fall one, but they should for going forward.
Well, also, if we're talking about students transferring in, if they were students with disabilities before enrolling with you, then your meeting is irrelevant. Student with disabilities on enrollment. But if it's, a student you're evaluating and they're, say, enrolled at your district office or at a school, then, then that SPED record is going to be the first instance of any SPED related documentation. So if it's dated after census day, then it's not being considered.
I would like to know where you're seeing them not documented as.
Q2 from Carmen. Can we ask for birth country if we make the question optional?
No.
Nope. Question one from Leah. Can you please tell me how to code this exit? The students stop showing up. We have called, done home visits, did a police well check, and have finally been told by a relative they moved to another city, but we can't confirm with the parents. Is that a T1?
Yes.
At 3:49, Kyron posted the PSTS survey template and guidance. Okay, Ethan has question 1. I'm sorry, did I hear Paul correctly? If we say T160'd a student last academic year based on the information we had at the time, but their new school never picked them up in CALPADS and they were being counted as lost transfers, dropouts on this year's Fall 1 certification reports. And as we investigated those students as part of our cert data review, we contacted the parents and found out they had enrolled out of state. It is, per Paul, not legitimate to change the exit codes from T160 to 200 because it was in the previous academic year.
I think when it comes to the T160, you can change it. It's information you found after the fact, and it's part of the ERD process. It becomes more cloudy with the truant, right? Because on the one hand, as Paul explained, you want to capture that the truant just stopped coming and you didn't know what happened to him. So, you know, on the one hand, our philosophy is if you have more information, you can update those, but it gets cloudy with the T1. I don't know if that helps, Ethan. Definitely, if you have more information after the fact, you should update it. Because that's how you clear the ERDs, right? Potential dropouts.
I mean, and I think the one thing to consider is that there's a difference between thinking a student is truant and then finding out that they were enrolled that entire time during the gap, right? But in the case that we talked about earlier, there was a gap. You know, just because now the student hasn't been enrolled for 3 or 4 months, and then all of a sudden you get a CUME request from an out-of-state school, that still means that that student was truant during the time that you owned the student. Okay. Now, had you found out, oh, well, this student has been enrolled with us for the last several months, then it is appropriate to change it. But if there was that gap, then that is still appropriate because they were truant.
Any idea on how to obtain the birth country without asking the question directly?
Or you ask it at a later time, right?
Yeah.
Brandy?
I mean, I would be really careful about this. I mean, the Attorney General has folks looking at your enrollment processes. And if there's any indication that you're asking the question, even, you know, in a nuanced way, they'll make you take it down.
That
So
was Flash a long time ago, Brandy.
Yeah.
It's probably been archived because it was several years ago. Is it written down anywhere else that you know of? I couldn't find an FAQ on it either.
you know, the only thing I could think of is that it's probably documented on the AG's website somewhere, but I would have to find it. So if you want to send in a ticket, I could try and see if we can find the archived version.
Okay. Carol says, we got hit for asking how many years a student attended a U.S. school in our registration process. That needs to be asked after as well.
Yep. Initial school enrollment date as well as birth country.
And we are at the end of the question, guys. It's 3:56. Unless we have any more questions, we could call it a day. Well, thanks everybody. We'll be back again next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. See you later.